die is cast, the war is on. Skeleton army come together as one.
We, God's army, make a stand. Grab your Bibles, there's our battle at hand.
The numbers are many, but we don't care. When the fighting starts, we'll be right there.
They fight dirty, they hunt in pubs. We will counter with God on our backs.
We will fight to the very last stand. Plant the flag for the common man.
Time has come to make a stand. Nothing ever will silence our band.
Our time has come, we'll rush the gates, knock them down and seal their fates.
They are coming, but we will stand firm. We'll overcome, this law will overturn.
Come in, I'll show you round.
Thank you.
It's a bit dusty, the place has been empty for best part of a year. Tony the landlord hasn't been able to rent it out, because no one has use of a big hall.
It's ideal for what we need. As for the dust, that's no problem. We'll soon clean the place up, won't we, ladies? It says here there's a large flat above the meeting hall.
Yes, it's through there, up the stairs, 4 large bedrooms, small kitchen and a bathroom.
Sounds just what we're looking for. Well, ladies, what do you think?
I think it's ideal. I think it's a gift from God.
Oh, Elizabeth, it's the only hall available and it's right in the heart of where we need to be working.
So down from London, is it? What exactly is it you ladies want to use this place for?
We've been working in the East End of London among the prostitutes and the poor. We've come to set up a Salvation Army mission here in Torquay to reach out to those disadvantaged, particularly those living in the slums of Pimlico and George Street.
You got your work cut out there, love. Lots of poor people living in Torquay these days, especially in Pimlico.
We know. That's why we've been sent here. I think... yes, we'll take it. What do you say, ladies?
Yes.
Oh, definitely yes.
Absolutely.
Salvation Army, you say? Well, once you've finished looking round, I'll take you up to Tony's office and he'll draw up the agreement.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, blow me down with a feather if it ain't Councillor Lawrence. Haven't seen you down in this part of town for a while. Thought you'd forgotten us. Come to spend a bit of time with one of my girls, have you? And who's this handsome young man by your side?
Lottie, how could I ever forget you? No, this is my son Rupert. It's Rupert's birthday and he's going back off to Eton in October.
Ooh, Rupert. Eton. Very nice to meet you. Happy birthday.
A bit slow off the mark in sowing his wild oats. So I thought you might be able to help. You know, special birthday present and all.
Councillor, I'm shocked. What sort of establishment do you think this is?
Lottie, that's enough. Girls, glasses need collecting. Come on.
Well, my love, you need to meet our Lily. She's good with first-timers. Lily, come here. This this young man here wants a tour of our upper rooms. Perhaps you would be so good as to oblige?
Can I get you a drink, sir?
I'll have a pint of your best bitter, John. Thank you.
All right, best bitter coming up. There you are, sir. Twopence if you please.
So, John, my good fellow, Councillor Adrian Colton was inquiring about the state of your business, as he's got a vested interest in running the local brewery.
Well, can't complain. Not much money around this part of town, but the locals seem to have time enough for a liquid lunch and come here on the payday. Place is heaving.
Well, that's encouraging. Glad to see business is booming.
Well, Councillor, you might be interested to know. I've just shown a bunch of women down from London, Tony Sanderson's Memorial Hall. They're from that new, what's it called? Salvation Army. Setting up a mission in Market Street. Been working with the drunks and the prostitutes in the East End of London. Going to be working in this part of town.
Do-gooders coming down here, spoiling the fun. Need to keep an eye on them, Bill. Keep them in check. Bad for both our businesses. Heard about that skeleton army they set up in Exeter? Bill, that's what we need down here. Keep them in check.
My, you're shy, aren't you?
Look, I'm not sure about this.
It's all right. I don't bite. First time, eh?
Well, this is my father's idea. I'm not like him.
Look, Rupert, isn't it? We can take it nice and slow. I like you. You're sensitive. I can see that. I like that. Most men, it's wham bam, thank you ma'am, and out the door.
How do you do it?
Do what?
Well, this. Don't you feel used?
Oh, I see. You're going to judge me now. Go ahead. Not enough to use me, but also make me feel terrible about what I have to do, what I'm made to do.
Sorry, that came out wrong. Of course I'm not judging you, and no, I'm not going to use you. I'm not going to sleep with you.
What do you mean? Your father's paid.
I don't do everything my father tells me. He's a brute the way he treats my mother. I have a lot more respect for women than my famous father. I'm sorry, this is so awkward. I should go.
No! Don't go. I like you. You're not like other men.
What do you mean you're made to do this?
Oh, do you think someone like me has a choice in this? I'd be on the streets with nothing if Lottie hadn't taken me in. She's got a kind heart. I know it's weird. I know it's wrong. But what choice have I got? She's the only one who's ever been kind to me. I was an orphan. She took me in.
But don't you want to be free of all of this?
What I want is never going to happen. I just lie back, close my eyes and imagine it's someone else doing it. Of course I want to be free. But that's never going to happen.
Well, would you let me help you? Let me see you again.
Yes, I'd like that.
Adrian, just the chap I needed to speak to. I bring good tidings regarding a change in the law I think will please you.
You have my full attention if this is about the Improvement Act you were telling me about.
No, my dear fellow, it gets better than that. Some of my friends have managed to push through and make law what we in the know has become known as a smuggled clause to the Torquay Harbour and District Act, Section 38.
I'm sorry, in plain English, if you please?
Section 38. of the Torquay Harbour and District Act means it is now illegal to march the streets of Torquay in processions, and our Torquay Act now includes non-military musical processions, including even on a Sunday.
My dear fellow, I still don't quite follow you.
Since the arrival of the Salvation Army, they have been recruiting quite a substantial number of soldiers to their cause, who, shall we say, have turned their backs on drinking and are becoming evangelistically successful in turning the common folk towards temperance, which, if allowed to continue, would have significant effect on both our businesses. Do you not see that?
And how, pray tell me, have your friends managed to do that?
A clause inserted in a private bill hardly noticed by our very own government, but very much law. Indeed, a law that we in Torquay intend to apply.
Sorry, so you're actually going to arrest members of the Salvation Army for merely marching through town?
These so-called God-fearing do-gooders will render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. When in Rome, etc., etc., they must adhere to the law.
But this is Torquay, not Rome. Do you seriously expect to see incarcerations?
The law is the law, and I shall make sure incarcerations happen.
So, we have to stop this now. We have to stand together. Most of our community are getting religious and giving up drink. We, the newly formed skeleton army, will safeguard our jobs and our people. Who do they think they are? Coming here, imposing their beliefs on others who don't want to know.
Yeah! We will stand against them with every fibre of our being. Nobody is going to tell me what I can or can't do, especially when it comes to drink.
But they're trying to help people. They care about folk.
Shut it, woman! They are endangering our livelihoods and turning folk against one another.
They're just decent people trying to help.
You hold your tongue, woman, or I'll beat you. Hear me? They are meddling la-di-da women, just like you, Emma Robbins. Do you understand? Do-gooders who think they are better than us. Well, on Sunday when they march, we'll be there waiting for them. Let's see how full of love and peace they are when we give them a good thrashing.
The meeting point is at the bottom of Temperance Street in Pimlico. If they take the same route as they have the last few weeks, they will start in Market Street and march down Union Street to the harbour. We will attack them as they pass Temperance Street from the left. You need to be there at 10 o'clock sharp and round up as many ruffians as you can.
Bring your batons and your sticks. We have the police on our side. Councillor Lawrence informs me it is now illegal for them to march on Sunday with their instruments. So for the first time for most of you, you will be on the right side of the law, and we will drum these religious fanatics out of our town. What do you say? Yeah!
We are so grateful for the generous funds you have given us. It has enabled us to provide much needed provisions and clothes for the poor.
My dear, anything we can do to help. You are doing such sterling work, we are only too pleased to support you. I am only sad to hear that you are receiving such opposition from certain members of society. That frankly surprises me.
I was stunned to read in the Times, no less, that the law has changed, forbidding you to continue with your outreach processions, and that some of your number have been arrested.
We intend to carry on the call God has given us. God is with us.
We march in the name of God and under protection of His banner.
But I have read such terrible things about the Skeleton Army targeting your mission, and particularly your marchers. Has your safety really been threatened?
It is true we have faced some opposition and threats, but no more than our Lord had to suffer. We know we do the Lord's work, so we expect opposition. Frankly, if there was no opposition, I would question whether we really were being effective. So, we will not stop preaching God's love and reaching out to help those who need us the most in every practical way possible. Knowing we have the support of you good people gladdens our hearts.
What Elizabeth hasn't told you is William Booth has decided to send his very own daughter, Eva, to come and work alongside us here in Torquay.
To help us in the struggle.
To stand with us and campaign to get the law changed.
My dear, Eva Booth is something of a celebrity. There was a picture of her in the Times just the other week.
Eva Booth, how exciting. When did she arrive?
We expect her to be with us by the end of the week.
Will she be here for the Sunday march?
I believe so, Lady Marchington.
My dear, that will certainly put the cat amongst the pigeons. How exciting!
Miss Booth, it's an honour to have you among us.
Miss Johnson, the privilege is all mine. When I heard that 15 of your soldiers had been imprisoned for nothing more than marching and playing the musical instruments, I had to come in and get involved.
We have defied this law in God's name, as it is purely a private bill passed to safeguard publicans and brewers in Torquay. We know the councillors behind the scenes who are manipulating the skeleton army and who indeed brought this law into being in the most underhand of ways.
Many of the publicans we have worked amongst are actively encouraging alcoholism when children go to bed hungry because their dissolute fathers have spent their wages on ale. It grieves me time and time again to see so many families destroyed by drink.
We will not give up the fight. I have already been in touch with the local MP, Richard Mallock, who is working with Mr Henry Fowler, the Wolverhampton MP, and they are looking into getting it overturned. In the meantime, we carry on as we are. We will march on Sunday in defiance.
Miss Johnson! Miss Johnson, I need to speak with you.
My dear, so good to see you again. What's wrong? Come and sit down.
And who is this?
Oh, sorry. This is Rupert Lawrence, my friend. He's the man I was telling you about. He's trying to get me a lace-making job over in Newton Abbot.
Not Rupert Lawrence, Councillor Lawrence's son.
Hang on. I've heard that you were both involved with Skeleton Army.
We are, but we're not. My father insisted I get involved, and Lily just got caught up in it, as they're using the hole in the wall where she works as their recruitment base.
We've come to warn you. They are planning an attack on Sunday, and they're working with the police. They plan to jump you at the junction at the bottom of Temperance Street. You've been so kind to me. I couldn't let them do that to you. I have to pretend I support them, or I'll be thrown out. You've got to believe me. Rupert's the same.
My dear, you have shown great bravery coming here today. The Lord will reward you for your goodness to us. Believe me. We are not frightened. We have God on our side. You cannot warm the hearts of people with God's love if they have empty stomachs and cold feet. So, we will not be deterred from this calling. We will march and we will overcome.
There they are! Oi, back Let's go!
give 'em the thrashing as they deserved.
Well, put it like this. We gave them a good hiding, but they knew we were coming.
In the past 6 weeks, their sympathisers have grown. But today there were masses of them. It's like they were ready for it. 15 of them were arrested, mind. The police were on our side.
All these posh people from up at the Lincolns were surrounding them, waiting at the bottom of Temperance Street. They came out of nowhere and surrounded them. I wasn't going to bash it off. Don't know where that would lead.
I don't know. I probably know most of them.
Well, I reckon somebody tipped them off.
Why would you do that? Why can't people see what they are doing? They're ruining people's livelihoods.
What, like stopping people drinking so they got money to feed their kids? Handing out shoes to our children who were running around in bare feet? Dropping off meals to folk who don't know where their next meal's coming from because the man in the house has spent all his wages on drink? Yeah, who would want to help people who are doing that sort of terrible stuff to us?
My dear, it wouldn't be you as tipped them off, perhaps. William, you need to keep your wife in order. We've got a rat amongst us good folks.
No, it wasn't me. Don't you worry yourself, Lottie, I wouldn't dare. But I see what they are doing, the difference they're making to ordinary women like me, whose menfolk put their drinking before their family.
William, I think your wife needs a good beating. Keep her in check. Show her who's boss. We can't have dissension among the ranks now, can we?
They have arrested 15 of our number. How could the police do such a thing?
Miss Booth, why did they let you go? I saw them arrest you. I have to say, I couldn't help myself. I bashed one of the police officers over the head with my tambourine. How dare they lay a hand on you?
I don't think they dare see me incarcerated, as it could force their hand to change the law. If it got in the papers that William Booth's daughter was arrested and put in prison, it would reflect badly on Councillor Lawrence and his followers.
I was greatly encouraged by the number of people among the ordinary folk who we've been getting to know, who came out to march with us.
And amongst the gentry. It is truly gratifying to see the support we are getting now from people with influence.
My dears, we had to come straight away. Are you all right? I saw them arrest you. They didn't take you in with the others then. I was so worried for you. It is good to see they let you go.
I thank you so much for your support, but we must do something about our number who have been arrested.
Leave it to me. This is indeed a terrible scandal which will go down in the annals of Torquay history as one of the most shameful episodes. Miss Booth, I have taken the liberty of setting up a meeting with Richard Mallock, local MP, who happens to be a great friend of mine and a great supporter of the sterling work you ladies are doing.
Lord Halesbury, that is so kind of you. I have already been in touch with him, and he has indicated that he and his friends, Mr. Henry Fowler, are already working towards getting the law changed.
Splendid, but we need to see more than just words, don't we? My dear, you will come to my house next Tuesday at 4, when I will invite both men to tea and we will thrash out a proper course of action. There are many people in high places who see the difference you are making here and are appalled at the abuse and threats you good people have to endure. My dear, we will get this law changed.
Lord Halesbury, thank you so much.
Oh, Bill, thank you. I love it. Bill, there's something different about you these last few weeks. What is it?
Someone has changed in me. I suppose I feel ashamed at how I've treated you over the years. I know I've not been a good part to our little ones. That meeting you took to me last week, something weird happened. I can't explain it. But it was like I was the only person in the room, and those words were just for me, piercing deep into my heart. I felt like a warmth come over my whole body, and a sense of peace, stillness, like I've never experienced before.
Bill, I can see it. You have changed. I suppose I've known for months that things are different. These people, they really care about us. I've never known such kindness. They know that you're one of the biggest opponents, and your friends from the hole in the wall beat them up and abuse them regularly, and yet they still deliver clothes for our kids, food when we need it. I'm telling you, William, I've had a shoulder to cry on many a time in the last year that you've not known about. They just keep giving when we're so horrible to them. How does that work? I see something in them I want. That Miss Elizabeth, I want what she's got.
Emma, I know I've been a terrible husband to you, leaving you to bring up our 12 children, beatings, drinking. I want you to know that I'm sorry. I do want to change.
What are you going to do about the skeleton army? They're a bad lot and you know it. You're going to have to decide which camp you want to live in. It's going to be hard.
I know, but for once in my life, I want to do the right thing.
Oh, Bill, despite everything, it's still you. You know that.
I know. Me too.
Home Secretary, thank you so much for your time.
No problem. Always good to see you, Richard. My dear fellow, have a seat. Scotch?
No, thank you. A bit too early in the day for me.
Don't mind if I do.
No, carry on.
So, how's it going in the sunny climes of Torquay?
Well, Henry, to be honest, we have a situation of ever-increasing embarrassment to civilised society. You've no doubt read about it in all the papers. They're now calling it the Torquay Wars.
Ah, yes, the Eva Booth business. Yes, I did read about it. Arresting people for doing good, eh? Surely that's not a good thing for your tourism. How on earth did it get in this sorry state of affairs?
But it would seem that Section 38 of the Torquay Harbour and District Act came onto the statute book as a smuggled clause, hidden deliberately. It was brought in by persons with unscrupulous motives who indeed have a vested interest in certain local bros business and hostelries in Torquay.
And you knew nothing of this?
Absolutely not. Nor did any of the town's ratepayers.
Oh dear. So what's to be done?
Well, we have a massive problem because the Salvation Army and the Torquay local board are at loggerheads with each other. It would seem there are some corrupt councillors, and now William Booth himself is taking charge. This will not get solved until we change back the law, allowing them to march with their instruments.
Yes, I read about one such fellow just this week sent to prison, given hard labour, for nothing more than marching through the streets and playing a concertina. It's totally ludicrous. Well, my dear fellow, I'm on your side. We will get this law changed.
Henry, I knew I could rely on you.
William Robbins, age 32 of 69 George Street. You have been charged with breaking the law in strict disobedience to Section 38 of the Torquay Harbour and District Act. On Sunday the 17th of March 1886, you did willfully engage in an illegal march through Union Street playing a concertina, in breach of statutory law, and thus initiating a disturbance which police and locals were trying to uphold said law. How do you plead?
Guilty, my lord, and I am not ashamed to say so.
You will hold your tongue, sir, and you will answer just the question with a simple answer. You have been found guilty as charged in this court, and as a consequence, you shall pay a fine of 11 shillings plus costs of 9 shillings or face 7 days in extra prison, hard labour. Which do you choose?
My lord, when these marches began 4 years ago, I was on the right side of the law. I was a member of the Skeleton Army and fought against the Salvation Army. However, this year I have come to appreciate the good work these dear people do for our community, and indeed earlier this year I experienced a revelation of my own. My life has changed dramatically. They have turned me from a swearing wife-beater and drunkard into a sober and praying man. So I count it a great privilege to face prison for the sake of my faith, and out of principle for my fellow soldiers and friends in the Salvation Army. You know as well as I, this law is a result of a deep corruption in our community that encourages debauchery and punishes goodness. And so until the law is changed, our fight will continue.
Yes. Order! Silence in court! Send him down.
Father, I need to speak with you.
Come in, my boy.
Father, there's no easy way to say this, so I'm just going to say it. I'm not going back to Oxford.
What do you mean? You have to finish your degree.
No, I don't, Father. It was your idea I should do law.
You won't get a job without your degree.
I'm not cut out to be a lawyer, having seen so much corruption amongst all your lawyer friends who are supposed to be upholding the truth.
You will hold your tongue, young man, and remember who you're addressing.
I am taking up a position as captain in the Salvation Army in the East End of London, working amongst the poor.
Oh, so you've got religion now, have you? You stupid fool. It's a prop, that's all it is for weak, spineless creatures like you, who can't think for themselves.
No, Father. Religion and faith are two very different things. I feel called to join the struggle against poverty and injustice, which is very different from the pretense and hypocrisy I've seen from so many of your so-called church-going colleagues.
How dare you disrespect me like this? You will go back to Oxford and finish your degree.
No, Father. I've always done what you've expected of me, but no more. Oh, and Lily's joining me. We're going together.
You mean Lily Summerson? That cheap, common little slut from the hole in the wall? Have you completely lost your sense of propriety? She's a cheap whore.
Propriety, Father, listen to yourself. There's more goodness in that dear girl than in your tiny little finger. And for your information, she has for the last 18 months been working as a lace maker in Newton Abbot.
You are a gentleman. She is a cheap whore. That's what I mean by propriety.
She happens to be my wife. I would ask you to have more respect. We were married but 2 weeks ago. We leave for London at the end of the month.
You little fool. How could you bring such dishonour to our family?
Goodbye, Father.
Great news! Bill's been released after just 4 days.
Emma, my dear, this is indeed joyous news. How can this have come about?
Well, I has a friend whose husband works as a jailer at Exeter. It would seem the jailers themselves were so incensed at the ruling that they themselves have released him for good behaviour. He's arriving this afternoon at Torquay on the 4 o'clock train with 4 other prisoners.
We must be there to meet them. Miss Booth, shall we gather the troops?
Indeed, we must gather the troops. Lily, can you go to George Street and Pimlico? Let's march triumphantly through the streets to greet them.
Can I bring my tambourine?
So long as you don't attack anyone with it again, Dorothy. Lily, tell everyone to bring pots, pans and instruments of any shape and size.
I'll go and get Bill's concertina for him. Lily, I heard your good news. Congratulations.
Oh, Rupert's been very good to me. We're going to make a new start in London.
I heard. I'm so pleased for you.
It's funny. The Salvation Army has actually been my salvation.
Same. My Bill's a changed man. Oh, I'm so glad he's free.
Let's give him the biggest welcome they can imagine.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming tonight and for choosing to come here instead of staying at home and watching the football. We have had larger audiences, but thank you so much. There is now a 20-minute break where you can buy refreshments in the foyer, and after that we are very privileged to have Dr. Kevin Dixon here, who is going to be doing a short talk on the true facts behind this play. So do make use of the facilities, and we'll see you in 20 minutes.
There was a section over there.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for staying on. I hope you enjoyed the show. You are in for a real treat. It's a great privilege to have Kevin Dixon with us, who's a local historian. I mean, what he doesn't know about Torquay is really not worth knowing, to be fair. So we are really grateful to have him here for all 4 of our performances. So thank you so much, Kevin. We really appreciate your friendship and your support to Unleashed. Unleashed, if you don't know, Unleashed, we are a charity. We work with folk on the sort of like fringes of society and stuff, and we run choirs, community drama. So we are a charity, so there is going to be a bucket collection on the way out. So if you want to empty your pockets into our bucket, that would be so fab. But thank you so much for staying. I hope you've enjoyed it and enjoyed the talk.
Wow, thank you. What a great introduction, and thank you. Tell you what, I really must start off by saying, wasn't that brilliant? Yeah. Wasn't that terrific? And yeah, and they're here, aren't they? Of course, and thanks very much for that wonderful introduction, Martin. Martin, you didn't really introduce yourself properly. Tell us who you are. Come on. Come on, Martin. I don't like this false modesty. Come on, tell us who you are. None of this would have happened without you.
This is our amazing director, producer, man of all talents, Martin Harris, everyone. Right.
But that's great. He really really, really deserves it. It's everybody's involved behind the scenes and everything like that. So if I forget to sort of thank anybody, forgive me. While I'm here, I've got a glamorous assistant up in the gods up here called Brian, who's going to do a lot of the technical stuff. And one thing about this theatre is that I do so many talks. I go to church halls and I go to WIs and everything like that. And you never know if things are going to be ready for you when you turn up. I know when I come here, it's going to be done. So, and it's a wonderful venue. So thanks very much. And real credit to the folks that run this cinema. You know, and it was part of my childhood, probably part of your childhood, part of your growing up, and there's a lot of strange things happening in the back row. I won't embarrass anybody who's here in the past. Anyway, I've started, yeah. Right, my name's Kevin. I'm Kevin Dixon. I'm a local lad, right? And I went to a school called Audley Park. Yeah. Any Audley Park folks in? I like knowing because that's where the trouble's going to start. So, right, okay. My secret, so keep this one really quiet, folks, don't tell anyone, is I did history O-level in those days, back in 1976, shows how old I am, back at Audley Park. It's not called Audley Park now, it became called, what was it called, Torquay Academy? Then Torquay Community College. I reckon if we leave it long enough, it's going to be the University of Watcombe. We'll say we're graduates of the University of Watcombe. Anyway, that's what I say. I did sort of O-level history, and I really, really didn't like it. It's a bit ironic, because, and it's a bit sad really, because when you did O-level history, I remember three things I didn't get on. The first one was that it's always obsessed with the Nazis. You know, I lived in Torquay and I was 15, I was never going to go to Germany, so it didn't particularly interest me. Or it was interested in kings and queens. Remember this? It was always about kings and queens. And they had a thing called, there's a little rhyme that said Henry VIII had 6 wives. 2. Anybody remember that one? 2? That's it. I always like finding out where the grammar school girls are. Remember this stuff. Or it was obsessed with agricultural field methods. Remember that? Jeff Rotel rotating his crops. And I lived in the centre of Torquay. You couldn't see a cow from where I was. So didn't care, wasn't interested, didn't do very well. Only later, I actually started getting really interested in what I thought was real history. And real history is where I lived, who I knew, where I grew up. You tend to sort of get really interested in this kind of stuff. And I got really interested in this because I read a couple of old newspapers. Just mainly interested. Nothing ever happens in Torquay. I thought, it's just an interesting place to grow up, beaches, things, seaside. And then suddenly I said this called the Torquay War. And I thought, ooh, that sounds interesting. Who took a war in Torquay? 100 years ago, Torquay's peaceful. Sandcastles and cider and strawberries and stuff like that. And then they started looking into it, and I read this thing, and it said the Torquay War on one side was the Salvation Army, and I said, no. Salvation Army? Because I knew the Salvation Army. You probably know them. They're lovely ladies in the bonnets that are outside, the Holden Centre. It's not called the Holden Centre now, is it? That shows you how old I am. It's Union Square now, isn't it? Yeah. So this, or they come into pubs, these gentlemen, or they play brass. So how could they get involved in a war? How could they get involved in a war? So I started sort of looking into this, getting really into the, the history of things. So what we're going to do, and everybody see that little red dot? I'm going to point at things with it. So what I really want to do is talk about whether it's true, and you've seen a sort of wonderful representation, and if you saw that, you'd think, well, that's just made up, wasn't it? And it wasn't. It was all true. So thanks, guys, for sort of bringing that and sort of reminding us of what really happened as our town went up. So we're going to talk about this. This is the Torquay War of 1888. And what I really want to sort of explore is, why did a Sunday marching band cause all this trouble? In a really nice, quiet little town, South Coast. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about what happened, why it happened, who was involved, and why Torquay of all places. One of the other things is I'm really, really interested in old pictures. I'm going to throw loads of old pictures at you. So, so this is all gone now, isn't it? This is St Luke's Road up here. So these big sort of villas where people used to live, a hugely sort of rich place. Bits of stuff about here, some illustrations. Brian's going to be pressing buttons for me. So next one, Brian. Here we go. And really, if you just boil it down to it, it was all about two views of what Torquay ought to be. So on one side, you had the authorities, and you had the established church, and what we call the local secular allies. You know, that's the hoteliers, the publicans, the council, the police. On the other side, you had the rise. Torquay was changing. So we're looking at the sort of rise of new movements, new faith groups, and new social class-based movements, new ways that men and women saw themselves and saw society. So that's what we're going to talk about. Isn't that a lovely photograph, image of Torquay there? Isn't that glamorous and lovely? There you go. Next one there, Brian. Right, so let's look at some of the facts, the basic facts as we go through things. Right, first thing is, as we heard, Torquay bans processions on a Sunday. I'll talk about why they did it a bit later. January 1888, the Salvation Army were in town and they decided that they wanted a march on a Sunday because that's what they'd always done. They'd done it right across the whole country. We'll talk about the Salvation Army in a bit. And they were spotted, here they are. No picture. Prosecuted and imprisoned for marching on a Sunday. Marching on a Sunday. And a musical procession. So basically what happened is the council said, you're not allowed to march on a Sunday. These men and women, that's a really important thing, they said they're not going to stop us, so they marched. And so the police arrested them, and they thought that was probably the end of it. You know, you arrest somebody, you put them in court, you fine them, and you fine them huge amounts of money. And when the guys did that performance, and you know, they fined that man, he was fined a huge amount of money. So really shocking stuff. And the authorities thought, well, they'll pay it, they'll stop. They didn't. What they did was that they just refused to pay. So what the authorities do then? Nothing they can do. They put them in prison. And they thought that will sort them out. Put them in prison, a couple of weeks, they'll learn the lesson, they'll come out. Didn't happen. What happened is the next Sunday, more bandsmen turned up and they sneaked them into town, disguised them. Came from all over. They came from, Exeter, Newton Abbot, Crediton, Barnstable. It takes a long time to get to Barnstable now, don't mind those days. So, you start going on the tractor, you'll know it. So they came down, and there was a kind of a sort of pattern happened. So the Salvation Army would turn up, play a bit, get arrested, taken them off to Exeter prison, and on the way there, they'd actually be escorted by the band, and lots of people turned up. Then the first lot that were in prison would come back out, and they'd do it again, and they'd be arrested, and it became for 6 months, they were shuttling people up and down to Exeter prison, and the musical program became a big thing. If you wanted to, go out on a Sunday, exciting. Over the 6 months it took, over 100 were prosecuted and jailed. There they all are. Some of them are. So they became martyrs, and if you want to look at a modern parallel, people ask, why don't the police arrest the just loyal people? Probably the same reason, because you're sort of building up martyrs, and some people don't mind going to prison because of their sort of beliefs. Next one, Ryan. And what I wanted to really get over was that this is quiet, sedate Torquay, and it turned violent, and it turned nasty, and it turned unpleasant. And I'll read some of these out. And this is that's the thing we could have done. I was thinking about this the other night. Instead of me standing here, that's what I love about local history, is instead of us all standing here, we could have actually sort of walked out that door, all of us, walked up Market Street and seen where it happened. And we could have recreated it, because we had the Salvation Army band. That would have really freaked out the police, wouldn't it? Like wandering up that Market Street. But it happened, there's Market Street, everybody know it? Yeah, so just up there. Got the dodgy bumps up here, which... Anyway, so that hasn't changed an awful lot. There's a main market here. I'll read this out, people can't see it. And I looked at some old newspapers, and these are sort of quotes, reports, as the weeks and months went by. There's some police from about 1890. So, right, a great crowd gathered at Market Street waiting for the prisoners to be taken to the railway station. The Royal Hotel bus was hired, and the prisoners were placed in it in charge of 4 constables. The progress of the vehicle was greatly obstructed while proceeding down Market Street, and on turning the corner, it was nearly overturned. So what happened is they marched, and then suddenly the sort of local populace came out and started defending them, protecting them. Really quite scary stuff. The confusion was so great that many people, including 2 constables, was thrown to the ground and the bus passed over the leg of PC Cole. Right. At Market Corner, just about here, that's where Nationwide is, by the way. But the last one of the few banks or building sites left in Torquay. Right, not getting started. Right, at Market Corner, a posse of police marching as if for duty broke into units and led by a sergeant fell foul of the procession. Quite nasty, quite aggressive. Here we go, and this is interesting here. I'll come on to this a little bit later, but it was about the role of women in Victorian society. Women were expected to be quiet, passive, you know, in the background, and suddenly, and this was a real shock, is the Salvationists were included in a riot, some of the lassies losing their tambourines. Right, with considerable tenacity, the women held onto the flag. Women weren't supposed to act like that in Victorian society. Right, next one, Brian. Right, let's look at Victorian society. Let's look at Torquay society. We're talking about a society where there were. It's quite an old society, dominated by some really big families. You probably recognise some of these names. We mentioned the Mallocks. They were up at Cockington. There's Cockington here. The other one's the Careys. Isn't that lovely? Yeah, Tor Abbey, of course. That was their house. Then you had the Polks, who became the Lord Holden. And there you are. That's up in that's in the Lincolns. That's terrific. How you could actually what you did, you took your horse-drawn carriage and you say getting wet. Actually designed that around it. Brilliant. That's now a care home up in Lincoln's house. Wonderful building. So you have these big sort of families that dominated Torquay. Next one, Brian. You also had the established church. Now, the established church, the Church of England, been there for, ever since Henry VIII decided what he wanted to do with Van Bolen and all that kind of stuff. But it goes far older than that. This is St Saviour's, it's now called St Andrew's, up the top of Lucia Street. We think it goes back to the 6th century, so we took about 1,000 odd years. Things as a sort of missionary station. But in the 19th century, you were starting to build lots of big Anglican churches. Here's a few of them. St John the Apostle, there you go. Mary Mag's. Yay! Yay! Where's the Mary Mag's fan club? Yay! There you go. Can I say thanks very much? You do some remarkable work with some of the most marginalised of our community. And if everybody goes up there, supporting the homeless guys and the bacon sandwiches, well done on the bacon sandwiches, by the way. And the real sort of core of sort of looking after the community. So this whole thing just goes right the way through. The way that Christians, the way the church, and people with faith are supporting people. They support them then, they support them now. So thanks, guys. Where are we? St Matthias up at Ilsham. Look at the dates. Date 23. St Luke's. There you go. That's the old one of St Luke's. That's where I take my mum, which is well enough. All Saints up at Babacombe, 865. All Saints Tor. That's Agatha Christie's old church, isn't it? Christ Church Ellicombe. That's the old one there. So you had that kind of domination of some of the big families, linked up with the council, linked up with some of the political parties, and linked up with the church. So everything was, this is what society was supposed to be like. Very posh. Next one then, right? And look at some of these big houses. This is what Torquay was like. You had that kind of, here's the villas. People recognise that one? Oh, look at the whole Villa Lugano, Italianate. Yeah. And there's a little, campanile bell tower there. We've got a lot of these weird bell towers, lots of weird archaeology, architecture in Torquay. Isn't that lovely? Italianate gardens, lots of posh people. Look at these big houses on the hill. That's gone. Anybody recognise that one?
Oh, yeah. No.
Yeah, Days on. It's up in Plainwell. Look at the size of this place. They knocked it down, demolished 1920s or something, wasn't it? Here's another one. This is the Ehrenberg House. Erin House. That's Baroness Coote's house. Both of those are gone. That one was replaced by something called the English Riviera Centre, which wasn't going to cost us a penny. So. Okay, next one. Right, the thing I'm trying to say is that Torquay was a special resort. It was somewhere different. It was somewhere special. Now, there was 48 seaside resorts around the whole of Britain. So you'll know them all, the Blackpools, Margate, Bournemouth, all of those kind of things. But not every seaside resort was the same. Torquay prided itself on being the premier, the poshest, the richest, the nicest resort. And there's some interesting pictures here. There's some that's up Rock Walk, some nice Victorian ladies. This is the bottom of Rock Walk. Look how they wear the dress. Incredible, you know, real sort of, really excellent. We were the sort of premier resort. We were the recreational centre for the British Empire. Whole British Empire came here. They said you could see more members of European royal families in Torquay than anywhere else in the world. So you go out, very rich. Other things, here we go, you'll recognise this, don't you? This is Princess Pier. It's not a pier. It's a breakwater. A pier, if you look at definitions of pier, water goes underneath it. This doesn't. It's like it's a breakwater. It's a hard wall. We thought, there was a suggestion back in the 1880s, about the same time as the Salvation Army big folks around, that Torquay needed a proper Victorian pier. Has anybody been to Bournemouth and Blackpool? You know those fucking great piers with the big, you know, and they called them working class palaces. We had a vote in 1880. Did we want a working class palace in Torquay? And we said, no, we don't. We don't want those kind of people. And the thing that we were sort of worried about was that the really discreet, really posh Torquay would be taken over by working class folks. So we quite cleverly decided to send them somewhere else. Yeah, so any Paignton folks here? I won't finish that sentence. Anyway, you've got them. So Paignton's got a pier, Tynmouth's got a pier, we don't. So it was quite conscious, and it all fits into this. So working class tourists were more suited to other resorts. It was cheaper, you know, hotels were cheaper, different types of entertainment. We didn't particularly like children in Torquay, so you can still see that now. You know, why don't we have a children's play park on the seafront? Paignton does. So we direct, there was even a story that you could get away with selling naughty postcards in Paignton, but you couldn't in Torquay. That made me say that. Anyway, I just want to point out that's what we're trying to get at. So we didn't want working class tourists. We particularly didn't want day trippers. Day trippers came at the weekend. So there was part of that sort of rule, partly to keep out the Salvation Army, but also we decided we did not want entertainment on Sundays. It would attract the wrong type of person. We did not want to be Blackpool. We didn't want to be Brighton. So the next one, Brian. Right, and by about 1880s, 1890s, Torquay was the richest town in the whole of England. Wow. And look at this architecture. There's the royal family thing. So even the names of places. Oh, that's Castle Circus, by the way. About 1890. It's changed now. It's not going to look like that tonight. Yeah, this is Belgrave Road. Look at these houses. You could be in Mathor, couldn't you? Something like that. Look at this. That's Walden Castle. It's only about 2 minutes walk from here, just up the hill. They knocked it down, but look at that, stately homes. And the names of places, Royal Hotel, let's get people coming. Grand Hotel, Imperial Hotel, you've got the Palace Hotel, you've got all of those. And there's a sort of street scene. So what I'm really saying is that there was such an extended conflict because what happened in Torquay mattered. If it was anywhere else, I don't think it'd be, you know, this wouldn't have gone for 6 months. Next one, Brian. And this is how it changed. Torquay was changing, and it's changing massively, and it's changing rapidly. This is Torquay in 1790. There's Hoopers, out there. There's Wetherspoons, it's about there, isn't it? Something like that. So if you look at it, so 1801, there were 838 people in Torquay. Most of them up at Tor, some of them scattered around the harbour side. Everybody knew each other. Then the population gradually increased. Yeah, well, by now, there's another 400 or 500. There's another 500, there's another 1,000 or something. Gradually crept up, we started becoming a house resort, started becoming where rich people came. Something happened, and that big thing that happened is in 1848, the railways got here. So from 1841 you had 6,000, 1851 11,000, and then it just shot up. By the time we're talking about, you had about 25,000 people. So the town was getting much bigger, and it changed fairly quickly, and people, you know, sort of living memories. It's from this, where's the River Fleet coming down here? Full of cholera. To this. 1893, that is. I mean, look at it. You're moving from a tiny little fishing village to a city, effectively. Right, next one there. Right. And because that happened, we started getting these new Anglican churches, but you also started getting other denominations denominations, other traditions of Christianity, and even sort of non-Christian groups like the Theosophists started moving in. And then they started building their own chapels, and they were coming in with new ideas, and quite radical ideas, and different ideas, and really old traditions. There's the Catholic Church up Abbey Road, just up here. So you started getting Catholic churches being built, you know, after hundreds of years of persecution. Other lovely folks, Quakers. There's the Quaker Hall. That's the Wesleyan Chapel across the road. That's gone now. Directly across the road from here, there's another Methodist chapel there. That was that. So that's gone now. That's opposite here. There's now that sort of apartment block. You started getting other traditions linked up because everybody had to have a church in Torquay because it mattered. So, oh, here we go. The Scottish Presbyterians. There we go. That's in Torwood. Is Torwood Park? Bizarrely, it became a sort of nightclub, and then it's now an apartment block. Just halfway down Fleet Street, this is the Starkey Chapel from the 1830s. It successively became the Blue Cargo Bar, the Piazza. Anybody that I do a lecture on pubs and clubs. So fascinating. So things were changing, and they were bringing in sort of new tradition. Oh, can you go back a quick, all right? So I want to talk about just mention it. This is a Quaker wedding in Warren Road, and one of the ones see women quite prominent. You know, kept separate, but they're older women. Next one now. And then, as part of one of those new traditions that came into town, was the Salvation Army. And it was really awkward last night because I had a long row of Salvation Army bandsmen there. And I said, I'm trying to get this one right. I know what they can do with the tambourine. Right. Yeah, Salvation Army began in East London in 1865. So quite a new movement by the Booths. But they had a sort of new, sort of radical way of actually sort of spreading the word. So they moved from the church pulpit, where people had to go to them, and they actually went out to the people. So they kind of preached that sort of practical, what they call practical Christianity. Was it soup, soap, and salvation? They didn't work with with respectable society. What they worked with was the underclass, the marginalised, the very poor. So the morphine addicts, the prostitutes, the alcoholics, the very poor. They sort of really started doing stuff like setting up shelters for the homeless. And a lot of Victorian society thought if somebody was poor, it was their fault. So you don't really help them. So they set up family tracing service, soup kitchens that were feeding people. They're rescuing rescue homes for women. Set up the first free labour exchange. So it's really quite radical stuff. Here's another one that's really caused a bit of trouble. Lovely, that's their social campaign. They campaigned to improve working conditions. And you can see all of these things were quite scary. Next one there, Brian. And they started working with Torquay's poor. And there were a lot of them in Torquay. There's a lady, a wonderful lady. This is actually in Torquay Library. There's a lady called Isabella Cowan. She's Canadian from Ontario. In 1892, she came to Torquay. She was came with her sister. And the thing about the poor in Torquay is that nobody wrote about them. Nobody mentioned them. We knew they were there. They had to be there. You only ever heard about them when something went terribly wrong. They ended up in court, or they upset anybody, or they rioted. But nobody actually sort of looked at their lives. They weren't interested. I've got dozens and dozens of books in the library, everywhere else, about the rich of Torquay and about, you know, where they came from, who they were, all of that kind of stuff, what they ate, what theatres they went to here and everywhere else. Nobody ever bothered talking about these guys. Isabella Cowan came to Torquay, and she did. And because she was an outsider, she went from Ontario, she went to New York, went to London, and then for some reason she ended up in Torquay for about 3 or 4 months, and she kept copious diaries. And she went to places. She went to Kent's Cavern, she went to the beach, she wrote a lot about local politics. She said we banged on about the weather all the time, so nothing changed. And luckily for future historians and for us, one day she looked at her guidebook, and she had a local guidebook, and it said, these are the places to go to in Torquay, these are the places you shouldn't go. Unfortunately, she used the guidebook about the places you shouldn't go to, and she went there. And she went here. This is Pimlico in Torquay. A lot of it's gone, a lot of it's been demolished. If anybody doesn't know it, if you drive down through Union Street, and then you've got to sort of turn left and then double behind Primark.
Yeah.
Would you know it? Yeah. So before you get to the GPO roundabout, we don't call it the GPO roundabout because they've got a GPO out there, but never mind. And so it's all of this, and these are the sort of tenements, these are the slums, and here's some old photographs about 1890, 1900. And I'll read this one out because it was quite. This woman, this lady, she'd been to New York, she'd been to London. She was amazed at Torquay, and she said, right, I have seen more luxury since being in Torquay than in all my previous life, and I never saw such pitiable poverty before. Half-clad children with hungry, pinched faces, and grown-up beggars with something worse than either hunger or squalor upon their countenances are to be seen everywhere. All pity for such poor folk in England, 1892. So it's that kind of level, that kind of level of poverty. Here's some folks here. This, we were talking about the Hole in the Wall. Somebody last night asked me whether the Hole in the Wall is still a pub. And it is, but it's changed a bit. So don't expect to meet anybody there, that's what we were saying. What's it, Rupert, when he had his birthday presents? Yeah, all I got was a scale electric set. Right, okay, so we're talking about some real poverty. We're talking about this underclass. So out of a population of 25,000 people, you have 229 Salvationists, but thousands of people turned up to support them and protect them. And that's why things did escalate. Right, next one over, right? Why were the authorities frightened? Because there was a long tradition in Torquay of trouble. There were riots, really serious riots in 1847 and 1867. The navvies that were building the railroad came down, they besieged Torquay Town Hall. Women came from Ellicombe and they smashed open all the bakeries. They were starving. They had to pull the army in, they had to pull the militia in to fight them back. So it was real large-scale insurrection. The authorities didn't want that happening again. You also had the Chartists who were campaigning for the right to vote. So they were sort of campaigning. You were starting to get sort of women that were sort of demanding the right to vote, and things were sort of changing. So there was a general fear of a breakdown of law and order. And so suddenly you had these guys, these men and women turning up, and they were saying they were going to organise the poor into a movement, and they started calling it an army. And that really, really frightened. Lastly, they didn't want these to arm and work up these funds. And there was real evidence of this. You know, I mentioned before about the trouble in Market Street. So young men were engaged in rowdyism and riot. So it's just really saying, you know, what's going on here? And we know that the police responded with surveillance. We know that they infiltrated, they put in spies, they intimidated people, they scared people, and occasionally they actually organised physical assaults on the Salvation Army. This is the police force actually encouraging people. Here we are. Roughs brought in from the neighbourhood and led by 2 policemen attacked the band. This is the police attacking the Salvation Army. Next one then, Rob. I won't go on too long. The other thing that was really changing here, which shocked people and upset people and concerned this kind of staid society, was that women were involved. We mentioned Eva. Who played Eva? Yep, there you go. Thank you, Eva. Right. Evangeline Booth, that's her. Came down and she led it. I mean, women just didn't do this kind of stuff. So, so the foundation deed was really scary things for the other churches. Women had the right to preach. Didn't happen in the Anglican Church. It only changed in the last 20 years, isn't it? You get sort of the Vicar of Dibley. So that's long ago. So they organised the armies fought in Temperance Street. She was 23 when she came down. The fort was just about here, just behind near McDonald's. So, and she said the majority of the world are sinners and they're quite against goodness, and I'm afraid it's the same in Torquay. So this was largely led by women. It really started, giving people the wrong kind of... Women would want the vote next. You knew what was going to happen. Next one, please. And I just want to give a couple of examples about how women were treated in Victorian society. Does anybody used to go in the Marine Tavern? Pub, perhaps? Yeah. Oh yes, 1, 2 hands went up. Yeah, the Marine Tavern. So the Marine Tavern in front of where the pavilion is, and it was just about here. The building wasn't built by then, of course. And here's the fish key, that's still there, took that one the other day. There's the fish key here. And what happened was the landlord of the Marine Tavern in 1893, a lot of his business actually arrived by boat. So him and his wife, like a couple of Victorian couples are there, would stand there, and when the boats come in, all the rich tourists, he'd say, come into my pub and get, have a drink and have a meal. That one day, he went out with his wife and he forgot something. I think it's his watch. So he said, oh right, to his wife, can you stay there? I'll just go back to the pub and I'll get whatever it was. While he went back to the pub, he left his wife on her own. And what happened? A policeman came up and accused her of being a woman of loose character because she was on her own. Just because she was standing there. Anyway, they all got a bit confused after that. So the landlord came out, and the police said the landlord was drunk and he attacked them. He said he hadn't, but he was certainly badly beaten. Went up in court. Loads of witnesses came out and said he was a good character and he was sober, but he lost his job and he lost his living and everything. But it just shows that a woman on her own was assumed to be a prostitute. A woman on her own was supposed to be something wrong with her. She had a very fixed idea of society. Next one there, please. Talking about, and one of our, a number of our characters were sort of prostitutes. We just want to talk about prostitution in Torquay. I love this one. Right, 1853, the Chief Constable of Torquay's Police, Charles Gilby, he complained of the unbecoming manner that young women of the town wander around the thoroughfares without bonnets and shawls. Very few of you are wearing bonnets today, so but what he was talking about, and he couldn't even say the word, was prostitution. Prostitutes dressed differently in Victorian society, and there's an example. You can see how the normal, respectable lady there is just looking at her. There was a major issue with prostitution, and one of the reasons was that there was about, I think I put the figures up earlier, right the way through the 19th century and the early 20th century, there were a third more women than men in Torquay. And that was because we had so many of these hotels and we had so many of these villas, and they just sucked in particularly female workers right from across the whole of Devon. And if you had a job in a hotel, you were probably exploited. They were working ridiculous hours. But if they lost those jobs, they would lose their reputation, and they would. And there was no sort of welfare state, just the workhouse. There's very little that a woman without support could actually do. A young single woman. So many of them actually turned to prostitution. And if you look at numbers, so 19th century city, I won't go into this too much. So 1 per 12 adult males. That's in a city. Torquay was different. It was probably higher. So if you look at those stats, there were around 700 women that were into prostitution in Torquay. So vast numbers. So if you're a local person, you've probably got you've probably got a prostitute as an ancestor. So it was a sort of real big business. The only reason we find out about it is because they don't talk about it. Next slide, and I'll. Here's one example. You only ever hear about this kind of thing about prostitution when it ends up in court. Now, right next to where we are today, you've got the theatre. Here, this is where we are, isn't it? There's the Duke roundabout. There's the old Torquay Town Hall before they put the clock in. There it is a little bit later. So about here is the Abbey Inn. And in 1899, there was a lot of complaints going in to the police about prostitution. So what they did is the police put in an undercover policeman. It's a dirty job, but someone's got to do it. And he went in there and he sat in the corner having his pint of beer, and eventually they actually charged the landlord for pub to be used as, I love these terms, a habitual resort of women of ill fate. They'd never used the word. And the evidence that he had, and I think this shows how Torquay was and how we actually saw women. The policeman saw women of loose character enter. They stayed for a considerable time, 10 to 25 minutes. They entered and returned several times on the same evening, sometimes alone and sometimes in company with men. Entering the inn, he saw 3 loose women in one of the rooms. The evidence they got him on, and they had 3 or 4 witnesses, he actually shouted, "Time, ladies," which proved to the magistrates that women were on their own. If he shouted, "Time, ladies and gentlemen, please," then he would have got off. But anyway, he was fined with £5, a lot of money. He lost his job, we don't hear anything about him. But it just shows, that's not that sort of level of prostitution and the level of that kind of desperation policy. Next one, Brian. The other thing that really scared them, and we came out, so we talked about this, that the Salvation Army called themselves a universal anti-drink army. They were teetotals. They didn't like tobacco, they didn't like people drinking. They even produced an alcohol-free boots beer. So that really challenged that kind of economic model of Torquay. So 1850, we already had only a population of 11,000, 20 inns and hotels, 29 beer houses. So nearly every other house was a sort of pub. So it was really really affecting this, really affecting people's businesses. As a Torquay hotel proprietor, he actually offered £10 to the man that will quiet the booth to get rid of her, because it was attacking his business model. There's Hoopers, was there. So there's loads of these cab men that were going around making business out of all of the rich folks. And the cabman tried to lash his horses to the Salvationists and close their exchange. So we said a lot of this stuff was actually based in pubs. There's the Devon Arms, next to the hole in the wall, that's about the same year. So you suddenly had these Salvationists turning up, and they were attacking the business model. And that's why people got so upset about things. Next one, Brian. And that's pretty much it. So after 6 months, the army won. And they won because of all the kind of things we said, because of all that embarrassment, because these men and women wouldn't shut up, they went to prison. So I just want to say, times were changing. So the army won, 1888, there's our discreet chart. It's these, a small act by individuals that really change the direction of a town and change history for us. So I think the Salvation Army let's give them a round of applause for winning. Yes, well done. I think the Salvation Army guys are here. I'd make them stand up, but anyway. And finally, I just want to do a bit of a quote. This is the war cry. This is their the Salvation Army's newspaper. And they said, there's the Salvation Army ladies there, the class at Torquay amid which and for which the Salvation Army works seem to have grasped that it's fighting the battle of the masses. On the other side are ranged the local society, black-hatted respectability, practical Toryism, the army's betters generally, everything that cries hush when one asks for a law to prevent wrong. I think we owe them a debt. And that's all, Brian, and I hope that was interesting. If you're interested in this kind of stuff, there is a book on it. There's a sort of website there. Can I thank everybody for being there, particularly thank you guys for doing all the hard work for me. Martin, the theatre, everybody and the audience. I've really enjoyed this one, and it's a privilege and an honour to be in this theatre. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Afterwards, any questions, anybody? This is surprisingly easy. Anyway, it's all up there. It's about 300 articles on the website and the book. But grab me afterwards. I'll be hanging around. I won't be in the hole of the wall. But thanks everybody for coming.